In today's video, we dive into the complex narrative of Donald Trump's journey from being perceived as a climate hero to a controversial figure in global climate discussions. We'll explore his climate skepticism and campaign promises that led to pivotal decisions, such as the withdrawal from the Paris Agreement. As we discuss the implications of this withdrawal on U.S. climate leadership, economic policies, and international relations, we'll also highlight the responses from states, cities, and businesses, as well as the contrasting approach of the Biden administration. Join us as we unpack the intricate web of actions and reactions that have shaped America's climate policy landscape under Trump. 1. Trump's climate skepticism. A campaign promise. When Donald Trump campaigned for the presidency, one of his central promises was to reassess the United States' environmental policies. His stance was clear. He was skeptical about the urgency of climate change and the policies aimed at combating it. Trump often expressed doubts about the science behind climate change, referring to it as a hoax and suggesting that it was a conspiracy against the American economy. For many, this rhetoric was alarming, while for others, it was a refreshing change from what they saw as overzealous regulations. His campaign message resonated with voters in industries like coal and oil, who believed that climate policies were costing them jobs. Thus, Trump's skepticism was not just a talking point but a cornerstone of his political identity. 2. The Paris Agreement withdrawal. A controversial move. In June 2017, Trump made a landmark decision to withdraw the United States from the Paris Agreement, a global accord aimed at reducing carbon emissions and combating climate change. This decision was justified by Trump as necessary to protect the American economy and jobs. He argued that the deal was unfair to the U.S. and favored other countries, particularly China and India. By exiting the agreement, Trump claimed he was putting America first and freeing the country from burdensome regulations. This move, however, sparked outrage and condemnation from world leaders and environmentalists alike. They viewed it as a significant setback for global climate efforts, likening it to a step backward in the fight against climate change. 3. A shift in U.S. climate leadership. Trump's decision to withdraw from the Paris Agreement marked a significant shift in the United States' role in global climate leadership. Prior to his presidency, the U.S. had been seen as a leader in the fight against climate change, working closely with other nations to set ambitious targets for reducing emissions. With the withdrawal, the U.S. sent a message that it was stepping back from this leadership role. This left a vacuum on the global stage, as other countries were forced to recalibrate their strategies without the active participation of one of the world's largest carbon emitters. The exit also raised questions about the future of international climate cooperation, as many wondered how effective global efforts could be without U.S. involvement. 4. Deregulation and economic growth. Trump's justification. Central to Trump's environmental policies was the push for deregulation. His administration argued that rolling back environmental regulations would spur economic growth and create jobs, particularly in traditional energy sectors like coal and oil. Trump's team believed that stringent climate policies were stifling the American economy and putting the U.S. at a competitive disadvantage. By removing these regulations, they aimed to unleash economic potential and revitalize struggling industries. This approach was met with mixed reactions. Supporters viewed it as a pragmatic strategy to boost the economy, while critics warned of the long-term environmental damage and the potential for increased pollution and carbon emissions. 5. Legal challenges. States and cities responded. In response to Trump's withdrawal from the Paris Agreement, several states and cities took legal action to uphold environmental protections. They argued that the federal government's decision was not in the best interest of their citizens and the environment. These legal challenges underscored the divide between the federal government and local jurisdictions on climate policy. States like California took the lead, implementing their own climate policies and setting ambitious goals for reducing emissions. This patchwork approach highlighted the complexity of addressing climate change in the U.S., where differing priorities and perspectives often clash. 6. Business and organization commitments. Despite the federal government's stance, many businesses and organizations expressed their commitment to sustainability and reducing carbon footprints. Companies across various industries recognized the importance of addressing climate change, both for ethical reasons and for long-term economic viability. They pledged to meet or exceed the targets set by the Paris Agreement, regardless of federal policies. This commitment from the private sector demonstrated that climate action was not just a government responsibility but a shared endeavor. It also suggested that market forces, consumer demand, and corporate responsibility could drive progress even in the absence of federal leadership. 7. Impacts on international relations. The U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Agreement had significant implications for international relations. It strained the country's relationships with allies who were committed to the accord and viewed climate change as a global priority. The decision was seen as an abdication of responsibility, leading to diplomatic tensions and a re-evaluation of alliances. Other countries, particularly in Europe, signaled their disappointment and urged the U.S. to reconsider its position. This move also emboldened some nations to step up as new leaders in the fight against climate change, filling the void left by the U.S. withdrawal. 8. The Biden administration's recommitment. With the election of President Joe Biden, the U.S. signaled a renewed commitment to global climate cooperation and leadership by rejoining the Paris Agreement. This decision was a sharp contrast to the previous administration's policies and was seen as a welcome change by environmentalists and global leaders. Biden's administration emphasized the importance of addressing climate change and pledged to take bold actions to reduce emissions and invest in renewable energy. This recommitment to the Paris Agreement underscored the U.S.'s intention to once again be a leader in global climate efforts, aiming to restore trust and collaboration on the international stage.